Hi there, I'm Graham Fitch and I'd like to welcome you to the May edition of Practicing the Piano Facebook Live Clinic. And the way this works, in case you haven't joined me before, subscribers to the online academy send in their questions in advance. I try to request that it be practice related rather than technique as such, but obviously these things overlap, so it's both related to practicing and technique all together because it's very difficult to separate these things out. So today we have some questions from Jonathan about some Scarlatti, about the pedal, but before I get to that, I'd just like to welcome you all here and ask you if you would like to say where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to click the like buttons and the other things that you can do on Facebook. And if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe, then you'll hear about content as it comes out. So the first question comes from Jonathan, who asks, is it acceptable to use the pedal in Scarlatti's Sonata in A major, K208? If so, how do I go about deciding where to pedal and where not to? Thank you for your advice. Well, this is a really big question and a good question, Jonathan. And a lot of people are confused, I think, about pedaling in Baroque music. So, you know, there's no absolute right and wrong answer about this. I think you'll find that virtually every pianist who plays the Baroque repertoire uses the pedal. Now, I know you're going to say the great Andras Schiff went through a period where he didn't use pedal deliberately. Now, of course, Andras Schiff is a very great artist in every sense and playing the very best pianos in the world. And I think only somebody of that stature can get away with not using the pedal, to make a point of not using the pedal. But actually now he is using it again, and sometimes quite generously, depending on where he's playing and what he's playing. The other great pianists who play Bach on the piano absolutely are using the pedal. I think the trick is to think about the pedal as seasoning to the sound. And I've got this analogy I like to use about salt. So, you know, if you're doing a cooking for a guest, you don't want your guest to take one mouthful of the food and go, salt. But if you didn't put any salt on there would be an absence of taste, absence of flavour. And while it might be very healthy, the food, it's not going to taste of much. So I think with Scarlatti, Bach, Handel, Chopin, whatever it is, you probably want a little bit of contact with the pedal to go down maybe just a tiny bit. It doesn't have to go all the way down. I mean, you can go all the way down. But let's have a little look at it from the perspective of this Scarlatti Sonata. Now, I'm going to have my foot on the pedal, and when I feel like I want a little resonance, I'm not going to use it for legato, I'm using it for resonance. When I feel like I want a little bit of resonance, I can go down just a little bit. Let me show you. Change my colour here because I want the music to be expressive. Now, what was I doing pedaling wise here? Well, I was doing very late pedals actually. If I did it with none, let's try this. And by the way, I would highly recommend practicing kind of regularly this sort of music without any pedal at all. It's going to sound a little bit bare. Let me show you. This is with no pedal. I'm doing all of this colouring by hand. Now, it actually sounds reasonably okay that way. So why would I want to muddy it with the pedal? Well, I do feel like there's something a little bit missing there. Let me come back now and just explain the sort of pedaling I'm doing. I probably would have my pedal down before I start. I can pedal these first two notes legato with no problem. That just adds a nice bloom to the sound. And now, when I play the appoggiatura on the beat, that's what I need to avoid. I need to avoid pedaling where the appoggiatura and its resolution are included in the same pedal. So if you wanted to pedal there, which I would, you would just pedal after you have resolved the appoggiatura. Legato, lift the pedal here, now put it down again. Now you may want a tiny gap between the B and the F sharp because there's a syncopation there and it may be the first place where you breathe, in which case you might again want to delay your pedal. And again here the same thing, I do not want to be trapped in the pedal, or so I have to be aware. And again I'm pedaling late here as well, after I've resolved. Now, when we get to bar 4, what would it sound like if I pedalled through each beat from the beginning to the end of each beat? Well, it's not so problematic when we get up into the higher register, but I didn't like the build-up of resonance in this register. That to me, even though it's short-lived, because I've changed by the time I get to the B, it's still not acceptable to my ear. So maybe I would just either not pedal at all here or pedal very late again. I could put the pedal down after I have played my G sharp. Just at the end of the beat, just to make a little, well, I said I wasn't going to do pedal for connections, but it does assist with these repeated notes in the left hand. So I kind of wasn't entirely truthful when I said that. I do want to hear a connection in the left hand. Now I'm going to start softer here and maybe a little bit more pedal. And then when I come to the end of the phrase, for me there's something very beautiful about the colour in bar 8 when the music goes from major to minor. So we've landed up in E major, the dominant key. Now I might even use my left pedal just for that moment where we get this lovely 7th in the left hand. I'd want to hear a little bit of that. Build up. Very light pedals. And certainly here, after the trill, when you look at something like bar 17, 18, that sort of a place, we can almost for sure pedal legato. What am I doing? Change, 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 but not here. When we've got those appoggiaturas, we have to be more careful. So I find that my foot is dancing, fluttering here and there rather than going down into the bottom of the pedal and then coming up at a predetermined time. It's much more sophisticated than that. I couldn't write that sort of pedaling in that I was doing because it changes from piano to piano, from room to room. So it's the sort of thing you can't commit to, which is why fortunately there are pedal marks in the Baroque don't exist, because it's so subtle what we do. Okay, Jenny is finding it incredibly difficult to synchronize the notes when playing hands together. I'm practicing Schumann's Melody at the moment and it sounds very coarse. in particular bars 8 and 11, but really pretty much throughout the piece. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Jenny. Thank you for this opportunity to ask a question. Your expertise and advice is always incredibly helpful. Well, thank you. Let me see if I can help you with this. And I'm going to go straight to those bars where you expressed a particular dissatisfaction. And I've worked out that really the quarantine spot, or Q spot as I call them, there are two of them in this piece. I'm going to do bars 7 and 8 as one Q spot, and then bars 11 and 12 as a separate Q spot. Now, a Q spot simply means that I don't start from the beginning of the piece when I practice. I go straight to those places that I've identified and I do some very special work on them. Now, I'm a great believer in working hands separately as well as obviously hands together, but I want to make sure really, let me play you the melody from the beginning just so you can hear what's going on. This is the spot. Now the good news there, Jenny, is there is a little bit of time at the end of bar 8. It doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be metronomically. That little bend. And then back into the tempo there. Now let's look and see what I mean by practicing a Q spot. I don't mean play bars 7 and 8, over and over and over and over. That would be foolish. What I would do would be maybe to start with my right hand and at a slower tempo. Now I need to organize my right hand for the end of bar 8 because Schumann suddenly divides the hand into two. So we get soprano and alto. So let me slow it right down. Now I'm talking about here the speed of no mistakes. And I'm going to go straight in now to bar 8. These are eighth notes. Now I've got a substitution, 4 to 5. Now I have found doing substitutions rhythmically when we play slowly is very helpful. It helps us to coordinate. So if I show you what that is, I'm going to subdivide my eighth notes, my quavers, into 2. And on the second half of that eighth note, I make my substitution. So it's 1 and 4, 5. And I do that rhythmically. I'll show you. 4, 5, 2. Now the slower I play, the more chance I've got to think about what it is I'm about to do. Everything about it, the note, the finger, the dynamic, the sensation that I want in my hand. Because in this corner here, I want more top. So I'm thinking of two dynamics within the one hand. Now, when I put that Q spot together, I practice, let's assume that I've now just practiced my left hand. I want to do this first of all at the speed of no mistakes. So that's the tempo that I can guarantee there won't be any fluffs or stops and starts or hesitations. And it might be as slowly as this. Think about so much when I do it at this speed, the balance between the hands, the togetherness, which is what you were finding hard. I tried to talk and play at the same time, not a good idea. There we go. And the temptation now is to go on, but don't stop. Make a point of stopping, hands off the keyboard. And then when we go back, we might need to do that 2 or 3 times. I can now do some chaining work, which I think you'd find helpful, Jenny, which is this. I play at a faster tempo, just a tiny little bit. It might be the first beat. And I refine that until I'm happy with the way it sounds and happy with the way it feels in my body, and that I can do it calmly and easily before I then add another It could be another beat, it could be another group of notes, but let's go by the beat. And again, repeat if necessary. Now I might want to start a new chain from that half bar point and just enjoy the sounds. Now let me go over one more beat. And now let me see if I can join those two little chains together into a longer chain. Now let me chain by the note in the next bar. That's by the 8th note. Happy with that. And when I'm happy with that, I add one more note. And when I'm happy with that, one more note. And I repeat each stage as often as necessary to make that really feel easy in my hand. So then I've got to a point where I can play very slowly and completely accurately, and then I can chain faster. And you should find that that approach really helps you with anything that you play. It's just a general philosophy, I guess, of learning a piece. From slow to fast, I avoid this incremental metronome approach, which some people like to do, which is where you use a metronome and crank up the speed a little by little. It's very cumbersome. It takes ages to do it. I'm not saying that there's no value in it. The problem is that there is negative stuff that comes from it, because we would never want to play this metronomically. Let me play it metronomically. Sounds like a machine. So when I play that musically, naturally, there's going to be a little bit of ebb and flow, a little bit of bending. You know, little intonation things like in my left hand. I want to show that chromaticism there. I want to show the end of the phrase. So if I practice with a metronome, I iron all of that out, and it's very difficult to discover it, rediscover it after you've ironed it out, because we get so used to hearing it in that dull metronomic way. So you'll find that the fast chaining either by the beat, by the note, by the half bar, by the whole bar, by groups of notes, that is so much better, in my opinion. Sigrun is asking about the Grande Valse Brillante Opus 18 of Chopin. How do I practice the piano leggieramente parts and also the places with the grace notes? Okay, well, this is the waltz that Sigrun's talking about. This one. Really fantastic, exciting piece to play. But the spot that Sigrun means is the leggieramente in bar, let me find out what bar number that is, 21, call it bar 20. Let me just show you slowly so you can see what's going on. I'm just going to take those 8 bars. The tempo should be that kind of speed, which we'll get to. Now, okay, the right hand has the difficulty that might put people off, the repeated notes, first of all. These, we have to find a way of managing the repeated notes so that they're effortless. And that's a mechanical thing, that's a technical thing. Now, lots of people do things differently at the piano. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to playing the piano, fortunately. So what I would like to suggest there, the way that feels good in my hand, is to use free rotational movements combined with active tips. So my fingertips are active, but I'm free further back. Now I'm going to show you a little exercise that I've developed that I think is helpful for this. So if we first of all remove the third finger from the black note and put it onto a white key, just to get the sense of this, because we've got more surface area on the white key to play with. It's a little less scary. So what I'm going to do, this may seem strange to start with, but don't worry, it'll make sense in a minute. Instead of playing the repeated note, I'm going to play 3 adjacent notes to get that motion. And if you want to discover the motion, just miss out the second finger for a minute. 3, 1, 3, 1. And then see if you can do that on the same key. So rotate from 1 to 3 on, first of all, the interval of a third, and then on the single key. You could even do it this way when you're happy. Then the second finger, if you come to this again, can you see the freedom in my hand there? I'm not scrunching up my 5th finger into my hand. That's fatal because it causes tension. Now what you could do would be to take some chromatic scales and just practice some chromatic scales. Don't forget to let the left hand. I quite like the idea of doing the left hand simultaneously for practice, because then the left hand can learn that trick as well. And if you do it in contrary motion, using the natural symmetry of the keyboard, then your left hand is in the brain playing exactly the same as the right hand, a mirror image rather of the right hand. And if you want to know more about that, I have written quite extensively on my blog, practicingthepiano.com, and just search for symmetrical inversion. It doesn't cost anything to read up about it. I think I've written 3 or 4, maybe more posts on the subject. So do have a look at that. So that's the first thing, is comfortable with those repeated E flats. The next thing is this arpeggio. Now, see, if I didn't have my elbow in the right position, that arpeggio is going to feel really nasty, because I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to make a sudden jerk of my elbow to get there. But if I have my elbow higher, here, in this position, then the passage over the thumb, I don't have to make any sudden adjustments. I'm in place. That feels very nice. So what I could do to make that move even freer is to add a little bit of a rotation again after the thumb. So I rotate on my thumb and then come back onto my 4th finger. And that feels really smooth. If you're struggling with that feeling, play the 4th finger in the octave higher, and you can easily feel that movement from left to right. And then, whoops. You see, all I have to do to get from that easy version of that rotation to that more challenging version is to shift my arm as I rotate. So there's hardly any gap at all. If I tried legato, I have to have my thumb in that position, which is very likely to tighten up the hand and cause problems. So the elbow position there is really helpful. Now the other thing, yes, you could, if you wanted to do this fingering, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then slide the thumb off. You may want to try that. It's not going to help you with the next one though. When you're looking at bar 24, can you see again now the thumb has got to go from the A flat to the C. Now if I try and make it legato, I can do it. In fact, I've got a big hand, it really doesn't cause me problems at all. But if you didn't like that, or hand was smaller, then that rotation there. And again, my target practice exercise may very well help with this. So I'll show you it. I just land chromatically. You can probably hear no gap. If I'm moving well and the 4th finger is firm enough, the release finger is firm enough, I can fool you into hearing a legato there. So we've got those two different approaches. Now, the other thing I think is really important when you've got something difficult like this in the right hand, don't neglect the left hand, because a lot of times this happens. The pianist practices the right hand like mad, and it's the left hand actually that's letting them down. Whoops, like mine. And then what? Let me see. So you could see I need to do a little bit of practice on my left hand. So what I'm going to suggest is, first of all, fingering. Fourth finger on the bottom of that chord there. You don't want to move from 5 to 5 unless you have to. Here I have to, in bar 23. The reason I have to is because 4 may very well be too stretchy. I don't like that stretch, so therefore I go to 5, back to 4. Now 3 on the bottom there, because I can use my third finger as a pivot. 4, 3, 4. So I'd like to just show you some little exercises for practicing left hand waltz patterns like this. What I'm going to do is to land on just one note of the chord and then touch the other notes in after while holding on to that note. Now let me land on the middle finger. Let me land on the thumb. And so on. Now let me land on 2 fingers. Let me land on another 2 fingers. Let me land on the outer fingers. Whoops, I forgot what I was going to do there. Now all of that is really good practice. It's not just repeating ad nauseam the same thing. I'm putting different challenges on myself each time I do that. And of course there are other ways to practice that as well. Then when we put it together, we've got the option of using the chaining practice, as I showed in the Schumann example, just 1 bar, pause, pause, maybe then go over the bar line, and then start on the note I finished on. That's really good practice for this. Now the other section, let me just quickly look at that. In my score it's bar 133. And again, make sure your left hand is very well organised from the point of view of fingering. It's great to see so many people here. I'm seeing Dilik is from North Macedonia. Well, Sinden is from Houston, Texas. Nice, lovely. Welcome. So let's get to this right hand now that we've got a whole bunch of accercaturas, grace notes. That kind of idea. I'm just going to take those 8 bars. So again, I'd make sure that that left hand were absolutely amazing. With shape, with character, with rhythm, with flavour. Now the right hand, there's lots of things you can do. I would suggest, first of all, hearing the line created by the staccato quarter notes, crotchets. I'll start from the note before. I need to be able to hear that line. I need to be able to sing it, actually. I'm not going to do that now, but having said that, I find myself wanting to. So once I've heard that, then I've got a good idea of how that should sound. Now the grace notes, let's just slow them down a little bit, and I'm going to put them before the beat, and I'm going to put them as 8th notes. I'll show you what I mean. Now I'm going to play them as dotted 8th notes. Get the idea? I'm getting them closer and closer together. Then I could do them as double dotted eighth notes. What I'm sensing there in my right hand, very much from the tip of the finger, my arm is very light. My arm actually floats across the keyboard. I don't know if you can remember the days of the hovercraft. I'm not even sure that that went over the world. It was a boat on an air cushion, and they would pump up the cushion of air underneath, and then the boat would rise up and kind of float over the water. So that's what my arm feels like, and my fingers are articulating pizzicato, this motion, pizzicato, very, very small scratching movements of the fingertips, the tips toward the palm. That's the most natural way of moving the fingers if you think about it. That's according to nature, as opposed to this sort of nonsense, which is not natural and not according to nature. So the next thing I think I would want to do here would be to play the grace note together with the main note, but voice toward the main note. In other words, I'm playing two notes together, but I'm voicing, making stronger the melodic note. The next thing I think I would want to do would be to play exactly that way, but let go of the grace note. So simultaneous attack and release. Now the trick with acciaccatura in passages like that is that you can actually play them together with the main note. Often that's the best solution, but you might find that when you play this, some of them will be more clear here, and maybe this will be more together. So, you know, experiment with that. Now, Desiree, I would be grateful for your help with Mendelssohn's Song Without Words, Opus 19, number 1. I find the turns in bar 5 really difficult, or the turn in bar 5 really difficult, and keeping the accompaniment soft is also proving a challenge. I love the piece and would like to do it justice. Okay, this is the Opus 19, number 1, apparently is the only Mendelssohn Song Without Words that Chopin used in his teaching, so he must have loved it as well. So we've got melody and accompaniment and bass line. The bass kind of starts out. That's the idea there. So as always, and I know I sound like a broken record, but when we've got this line, sing it. Breathe. 2 short phrases, now a long phrase. Now the first thing is, how do you want to shape that turn? It's not a series of detonations, it's melodic, so it needs to have direction, it needs to have shape. I'd probably want to start it softer and then feel like it was moving. Now in terms of fingering, it's usually in this piece 2 by 2, 2 notes, and I'm talking about the middle line here, the viola line if you will, 2 notes by 2 notes. That's how it's printed, and indeed it seems to be printed that same way for the 3rd beat in bar 5, but you don't have to do it that way. You can redistribute and play maybe 3 notes in the left hand, and then all you have to do is to play the last note in the with the right hand. So all the right hand has to do is this, and then back to 2 by 2. So that's one possibility, which actually I prefer. So try that out. So let me find my fingering. 4 substitute to a 3, or go straight to a 3. No, you can't. You'd have to go to a 4, substitute, and then 4, 3, 2, 3, 5. So hopefully that will have sorted out the turn. Just in general, I would do this, Desiree. I would play my top melody against the bass, the cello line. Because that bass line at the start is just supporting the melodic line, actually going in contrary motion and climbing, then zigzagging its way back down. So just appreciate the contours of the line and listen to how it goes together with the upper line. Now the middle, you know, there's a kind of procedure with this. I would, again, practice it by itself. See how even you can make it. Do it without the pedal, do it with the pedal. And then when you want to put it together, you could practice it staccato. Now you're probably thinking, well, why? It's not supposed to be staccato, the middle voice. So why would I want to practice it staccato? There's a principle involved here. By separating the touches, legato, staccato, I will eventually I will find it easier to separate the dynamics, because there is a different touch in this middle. It's going to be lighter, it's going to be a little bit more leggero in the middle, and the outside is going to be deeper, more clingy, more connected to the key bed. See there, I'm really feeling my key beds. I'm not key bedding, but I'm sensing that I'm on the bottom of my key. It feels lovely, it's completely free. Now, when I add my other notes, the inner notes, if I first practiced it staccato, I'll find it easier then to play it leggero. Can you hear there? I've got 2 different qualities of sound, probably 3 different qualities of sound, and certainly qualities of touch as well. The clingy legato against the light-fingered leggero middle. I think that's it. That's the questions for this month. So I hope you've got something from that. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here. And if you want to submit your own questions, there will be a link in the description box below. So I will look forward to seeing you next month for June's Facebook Live. See you then.